All right, it is 5:31, and I will call this regular meeting of the Rockbridge School Board to order. At this point, I would ask everyone to rise, and so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would just like to note that there's a binder with a public copy of board materials containing everything regarding tonight's meeting at the table at the side of the room. Meeting agendas are available. The public may also access school board minutes or school board agendas by visiting rrps.org, District Information School Board Board Book. This time I will conduct a roll call. Director Tamaro.
Here.
Director Yuhan.
Here.
Director Addy.
Here.
Director Anderson.
Here.
Director Reardon.
Here.
Director Schoberg.
Here.
Director Lotiger.
Here.
And Director Sundquist is here. Director Sorkin is missing. So we have 8 here tonight. At this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented or amended.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Anderson, support by Schoberg. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now is the time tonight where we will recognize visitors and visitor input. And the first person we have on the agenda is Julianne Paulson. So if you could come to the microphone.
Can I just ask quickly, did we receive an email or anything on why Director Sorkin was not able to attend?
Not that I know of.
Good evening, members of the board. My name again is Julianne Paulson, and to introduce my legal representation, Counselor Robert Roby, to speak on my behalf the remainder of my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mrs. Paulson, this time is for input from citizens and not
I
legal
did leave a
representation?
message for our superintendent to call me back if he had a problem with this.
Well, it's the,
It's her attorney.
that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Schmidt.
Who is it?
Could you please state your name for the record?
Certainly, thank you. My name is Robert Roby. I'm an attorney in Cambridge, Minnesota, and appreciate this opportunity. My goal here tonight is informational only, but I was asked by Ms. Paulson to just come and speak on her behalf.
Can you spell your last name?
R-O-B-Y?
R-O-P-Y?
R-O-B-Y.
Thank you.
Can we get the audio turned up so we can hear what he's talking about? I mean, we can hear him, but we can't.
She can restart
Okay.
the time, that's fine. We just want to know who he is.
What would be
We're
helpful for
struggling to
the
hear
board?
him. I mean, if we can start the time, that's fine. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
But we just can't hear him.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. How's that? Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Robert Roby. I'm an attorney in Cambridge, Minnesota. I work with a number of parent groups who are trying to address mask policies in their schools. And Ms. Paulson asked me to come up and just kind of share some background that from the research that I've done. My goal here is mainly informational. I grew up in Duluth. My dad was a teacher. My wife's a teacher. Education is close to my heart personally as well. As an attorney, I guess I just say a brief time here. I'll address what I'm aware of as far as the statutes and the law in Minnesota. There is a statute, Chapter 12.39, that states that Minnesotans have a fundamental right to determine their own medical treatment. And it's a very important statute. It actually is in the context of the Emergency Powers Act and addresses what the governor can do when there's a medical emergency that's declared, as we had here in this state. And it talks about the fundamental right to choose medical treatment. And then it states that if there's an emergency situation, that the governor would have the power to quarantine individuals who chose not to receive medication. So the statute is interesting in that there is a provision that if it's violated, there's a criminal sanction. Now the question becomes with the mask policies is whether or not a mask is medical treatment. And I know there's a lot of dispute over that's going on, but in the rules of statutory construction, Minnesota statutes have to be looked at to decide whether a medical treatment if a mask is part of that. And if we looked in Chapter 609.735, the statute that makes wearing a mask for disguise purposes illegal and also has criminal penalties, it gives an exception that if you're wearing a mask for the purpose of medical treatment, that you're not culpable. And so it creates this exception, but it does refer in that statute to a mask being medical treatment. Now, it's concerning that the OSHA rules apparently have been suspended since COVID, and that there are OSHA officials who will speak on the OSHA rules and how they go through, prior to COVID, that they went through a process of testing medical testing of individuals who were going to wear masks for their occupation to see if they could handle it. And then they limited the time that they could even work with a mask on because of the hazards, the drop in oxygen levels, the rise in CO2 levels, which
Mr.
were...
Roby, if I could ask you to conclude, that your 3 minutes is up.
Which were beyond the acceptable risk. So there are many, many reasons, and I guess my concern here is that what would wisdom require in this case for a school district? There are many districts across the state who are not mandating it, and for good reason. And so I just provide this information on behalf of Julie Paulson. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Roby.
Thank you.
Next for visitor input is Ms. Klang. Ms. Klang, if you could come forward.
Good evening. I don't have a huge amount to say. I am a mom of 2 Rockridge students, and we've been trudging through this for, it's been a year and a half, and I've been really considering the effects of everything that's been happening over this time with my children. The biggest part is my kids' psychological health. I've noticed a huge change in my son, Remy. He's a cheerful little guy. He's all smiles. And I noticed a psychological change in him when the masking was placed in the school. For how many weeks he actually went to school last year, he actually was sick 4 times. Somehow masked, social distanced, with all the hand sanitizer, everything that was going on. We don't know. They told us that unless he had a fever, it wasn't a problem, so I never had to have him tested or anything. No COVID. We actually had COVID when it first started, so we are pretty much immune. Immunity does not seem to matter anymore. That's a big problem for me with this mandate. And the fact that suicides, amongst girls, it went up 50% during the pandemic. 50%. And for everyone else, 39%. That's unacceptable. Our children, their health is one thing, but their minds are a part of their health. And they matter. Our kids really matter. putting a mask on somebody is not going to keep a young child who's healthy and fit, it's not going to help them do anything differently. It will only hurt them. And that's all I really have to say. I know you guys care about my kids. I've been with the school district since my child, who is autistic, since he was in early intervention when he was 2.5 years old, when he tottered onto that bus the first time. I know you guys care about my kids. I know you'll make the right choice. I know you won't do this to my kids again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Jeff Tezik.
My name is Jeff Tezik. I teach 4th grade right here at Rock Ridge and am a parent of 2 Wolverines. Masks were highly recommended to begin the school year. We're in week 4 now. There aren't many kids that wear them in school right now. I have not witnessed one student being teased or being singled out for wearing a mask. Has it happened? Probably. I have not seen it. Dr. Schmidt offered distance learning for grades 3 through 6. We have just over 20 students in grades 3 through 6, 732 kids, and only 22 are distance learning. Less than 3% chose that route. The kids want to be in school. They don't want to wear a mask while they're here. Those that want to wear masks in school are. It's time to listen to the silent majority of the families in this school district. Not everybody's outspoken, not everybody's in your face, not everybody's obnoxious. I'm there every day with these kids. They're okay. Most kids don't want to wear them. Keep it a recommendation, please. Don't require this. It'll continue to be a win-win for both sides. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
next, for visitor input, is Mr. Waldron.
I couldn't hear you either.
Tom Waldron?
Tom Walton?
He's coming.
Yeah, I'm Tom Walton from Eveleth. I believe I sent all of you the American Standards for Testing Materials download from the CDC. Did you all receive that?
We did.
Yeah.
Well, I got news for you. Cloth masks and the medical masks do not live up to those testing standards. Okay? You should read that. It's lengthy. I've read most of it, but you need to read it. Excuse me. Now, the money you receive from ESSR state plan, that amounts to $588,195, is that correct? But that comes with some strings, doesn't it? And one of them is you have to mask mandate. Is that not true? So what you're doing is you're taking our tax money and bringing it back into the district and waving it as a carrot for something we don't want, and you're using that to take away our right to choose. Yes? So you need to go back and read that download that I sent you, because medical masks and cloth masks don't cut it. Okay? And that is the science, real science from the CDC, not most of their garbage that they put out on mainstream media, because they lie constantly. And at a previous meeting, I gave you a link for over 20 studies that show that masks are harmful. You breathe in carbon dioxide. They accumulate all kinds of bacteria, bacterial meningitis. And they're not effective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 4 is the consent agenda. I do have 2 amendments to 4.5 and 4.4. Ms. Surface's salary will be prorated to 4 weeks, not 8. And 4.4, Elizabeth Nemey's salary will be prorated to $28,249.53 based on her 9/27 start date. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with those amendments?
So moved, Reardon.
Is it support by, was that Tamaro?
Yep.
There's a motion and support. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
And I would just let the record reflect that Director Sorkin is here. So motion carries 8 to 1. Under administration items, number 5 is 5.1, consider approval of resolution establishing combined polling place for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election for a combined polling place that is unavailable. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Tamaro,
Support.
support by Lotiger. Any discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Director Lotiger?
Yes.
Director Schoberg?
Yes.
Director Reardon?
Yes.
Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Addy?
Yes.
Director Yuhan?
Yes.
Director Tamaro?
Yes.
Director Sorkin?
Yes.
And Director Sundquist is a yes. Motion passes unanimously. Director Sorkin, everything is on and being controlled from our tech people on the side. Agenda item 5.2, consider approval of the notice of change in polling place location to be mailed to affected households.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Director Yuhan, support by Director Anderson. Any additional discussion?
I have some comments to make.
And Ms. Director Sorkin, you're going to have to kind of speak a little closer into the microphone.
Well, I have some comments because we had, in what
And you probably even need to pull it a little bit closer.
And you can adjust it up and down, Polly. You just can't, you don't need to turn anything off or on.
I just have some comments. There you go. In a previous Evelyn Gilbert School Board election, we had confusion when polling places were changed and consolidated. And personally, I would like to keep the previous Evelyn Gilbert ones, the original precincts and the voting places in their same locations. People from Clinton Township, I think, will have to go to the Fail Town Hall. I had so many people contact me. A lot of people were confused and they ended up not voting. I think this was the consolidation vote. Could have been the referendum vote too. And there were long, long lines at the Ebla City Hall. A lot of people turned back and didn't come back to vote. It rained that day, and I would like to change the Ebla Gilbert ones back to all of the original precinct voting places. I would make that into a motion.
We have a motion on the floor, and it's been supported, so I would call the vote at this time.
I would make that an amendment to the motion.
There's a motion and a support. We will call the vote. All
Is
those
there a
in favor
second to my amendment?
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Are you voting yea or nay?
I have a point of order to discuss before the vote, before the
No, we had a motion, we had
consummation of the
support.
vote.
We didn't have an amendment from the original maker of the motion. So
You
you can either
didn't
vote
call
yea
for
or nay,
You didn't
or
call
I
for
will
a second to my
call
amendment. You didn't call
An
for a second to my
abstention
amendment.
on your part, Director Sorkin. Are
What's
you
that?
voting or are you abstaining?
I'm calling a point of order because you never called for a second on my amendment.
She didn't get a second anyway.
Well, you didn't call for one, so I'm still waiting to
You
see if
didn't
anybody
get a
would.
second, there was a motion, there was no amendment by the maker of the motion. I called the vote, I will consider you abstaining. Motion passes 8
You
with one
cannot vote for
abstention.
me, I vote no.
So motion passes 8-1. Agenda item 5.3, consider approval of resolution appointing election judges and healthcare facilities election judges.
So moved, Reardon.
Motion by Reardon, support by Tamaro. Any discussion?
I have some questions about the election judges. I believe there's a statutory amount of days before the election that we have to appoint these judges. Is that accurate, Stacy? Is it 45 days or 25 days before an election? 25. Let's see, that makes it, we still have some time to do that. But as I understand, all of the trainings for election judges haven't taken place yet, and I guess I was wondering.
Director
if there-
Sorkin, these are questions that should be asked before. We have a limited amount of time before the
Well,
meeting starts.
there's
at
a
6.
limited amount of time to ask questions when you get your packet late Friday night, and then Monday is the meeting. I'm curious as to if we had an overabundance of election judges. Did we have more than what's on this list, and what was the criteria for selecting election judges?
These are not questions that we're going to interact with our secretary at the board meeting. I'm going to call the question.
One person can't call the
All those in
question.
favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Point of order.
Opposed, same sign.
One person can't call the question, you have to have a vote, so I think you need to study
Okay,
your
motion passes
parliamentary
8
procedures.
and 1 abstention.
And I voted no. You can't vote for me.
Does it have to be a roll call? Is that a resolution?
Oh, it does have to be a roll call vote. Director
You better
Lotiger?
bone up on your parliamentary
Director-
procedures.
Director Schoberg?
Yes.
Director Reardon?
Yes.
Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Addy?
Yes.
Director Yuhan?
Yes.
Director Tamaro?
Yes.
Director Sorkin?
No.
And Director Sundquist says yes, 8-1. Agenda item 5.4 is consider approval of the preliminary 2021 payable 2022 levy at maximum. And Spencer Auni, can you present for us?
Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll try to do this while I hold this. So each year before September 30th, the school board must approve the preliminary levy. Attached, you did find the summary of the preliminary. At this point, we would recommend that you approve it at maximum. There's things that could change at the state level between now and December, when you'll be asked to actually certify the levy at the actual dollar amount. So if anything were to change between now and December, if you do maximum, then you could change it at that time. So that's why that recommendation is that. It's recommended that we would hold a truth in taxation public hearing on December 13th, 2021, prior to the regular school board meeting, and that's when you would approve the actual levy. So if any of you had any specific questions on the summary information that was in the packet, I can try to answer those.
I have a question or two. Could you tell us, the board, myself, and the public, which levies require voter approval and which ones do not require voter approval? You've got multiple ones on this list.
So the original ones that require voter approval are operating referendums and then the building bonds.
Let's see.
But those would be just the original time they were done. This is the annual cost on those that were approved.
Wait, now, where do I find that on the list? Operating levy? I see operating capital.
Operating referendum is on the top.
Operating referendum.
Yep.
And what was the other one?
And the bonds. So you can see that one,
Let's see. Debt service?
the debt service, correct.
Debt service. But, okay, how about that second set? The reemployment, safe schools, buildings, lease, health benefits, OPEB, judgment, and whatever miscellaneous is?
No, those are all part of state statute, and those are the amounts that you could levy if the board elects to levy those.
Okay, and those do not require voter approval?
Correct.
Okay, and the only two again, so I'm straight, the operating referendum and the debt service
Correct.
are the only two. I have a question about the judgment levy. On payable 20, payable 21, you've got 0 for the judgment levy, and in your notes you say that was because of the ERAT settlement. It's a one-time levy for 21, payable 22, and it accounts for 6.7% of the 9.8% overall increase. I was curious about that being levied because didn't the ERATs pay lease amounts? They get lease aid as a charter school, and didn't they pay that as rent or lease for those buildings, just about that same amount for 1 year?
They did pay lease on that last year. However, with part of a settlement, you can levy that. So that's why it's on here for your decision as a board if you want to keep it on there.
So we are levying that amount, and we got approximately that same amount in lease rent from them?
Correct, but if there wasn't a judgment against the school district, we would have still received that lease, but we wouldn't have had to pay it out.
Right, you would have still received, we still would have received that lease amount,
But we wouldn't have had to pay out the dollars.
but we wouldn't have to pay out.
We wouldn't have had to pay ERATs the dollars. We ended up
Okay,
having
then
to
that
pay
was
them,
the
that's why it's
judgment.
on, that's
That
why
was
the
judgment.
judgment's
So
on there.
I kind of see it just as a wash, really. Money coming in and then money going out, so it was a wash, pretty much. Okay, thanks. All right.
Any other questions from any board members? Okay, we have a motion and support.
Nope.
Oh, no, we don't have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Anderson,
Support Reardon.
support by Reardon. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 5.5 is consider approval of the Rockridge COVID Plan 2021-2022. Mr. Carey.
Good evening, board members. I've been tasked with talking to you tonight about the state of COVID-19 in our buildings. We tried starting out the school year being as normal as we possibly could without having too many mitigation methods in place. You will notice that there should be a spreadsheet in front of you that looks something like this that gives our current numbers and cause for concern as to why our team met last Thursday to talk about potentially putting in some more mitigation to try to keep kids in school as long as we can. So if you look at the spreadsheet, you can see that I have two columns there. One is the cases as of today, right now, and that number is 44 across the board, and the county case rate per 10,000 being 55.7. Right around this time last year when we made the decision to go to distance learning, that's what you see in the bottom row. You can see that the numbers are even less than where we currently are right now, which is why I'm here today talking to you about the plan. So I'm going to go through the plan, the highlights, and then you can ask any questions that you have. I know that you're limited on time, so I'll hit the highlights of what's changed, and then anything specific you can ask me about. So looking at the plan, the first page is basically an introduction to, and the second plan is how we monitor. That is nothing new, nothing that you haven't seen. So I would direct you to, I believe it's page 3 where it says isolation and quarantine. These are things that we are recommending change. So right now, we are following the state guidelines as far as quarantine goes. For instance, if somebody becomes a close contact, whether it be at home or at school, we are enforcing the 10-day quarantine, even if you're asymptomatic. So in our recommendation here, one of the things that we are looking at changing is the quarantine periods. If a student or staff member is asymptomatic, meaning they don't have symptoms, or if they are vaccinated, We are not recommending that they have to quarantine for those 10 days unless they suddenly have symptoms, and then they would have to. Does that make sense? So then for all students and staff that are exhibiting symptoms, that 10-day quarantine would still be in place. Or if you test positive. The next part is that last, where it says procedure for Rockridge for a confirmed case. The only thing that is really changing is again in that bottom paragraph where it says members of the same household that are close contacts are quarantined. We are changing that. Now if you are not symptomatic, again, that you would not have to quarantine. The next subject past that is face coverings. We are, of course, recommending to the board that we have universal face coverings for all of staff and students. One of the reasons for that, why we're looking at that, and if you look at your numbers on the chart, you'll notice that the 6th grade at the Nelshin had a pretty good wave go through, and we did put masks in place last Monday, and since then we had a couple carryovers, but that were exposed prior to the masking, but we haven't had one since. And being that the outbreak as it is, the staff felt like that would be the best course of action for us to take until the county numbers start to go down.
I would ask, please, audience, please be courteous and let him finish.
So the last part of the document is things that have not changed, the social distancing. Of course, we used to have the recommendation of 6 feet. We are trying for 3 feet apart in the classroom now. Hygiene, building ventilation, cleaning and disinfection, and the communication methods are the same. So I would entertain any questions that you may have.
I have a,
Jeff, I have a
few
question.
too.
Go ahead.
So the quarantine stipulations and the different scenarios you gave, so say some students are quarantined, is there any distance learning for them or any Zoom communication or contact, or are they just out for 10 days with nothing?
Yeah, at this time, our plan would be to treat it just like any other type of illness or absence. I mean, we'd still do the makeup work.
So
but
they
we would
don't.
Not be, we would not be doing the.
Oh, they don't have any electronic communication. No. Is that something that we might want to institute for
that
better education?
Certainly could be. Yeah, it's something we can talk about.
Yeah, I would suggest that we take that as a priority and work on that. Some kind of personal contact, electronic contact with kids or whoever's out with COVID. I just think that'd be more conducive to better education and keeping up, especially in places, courses like math or something that's pretty technical.
Did you have one?
I do. I have a few that I've written down here. So in regard to quarantining, if a student, and there are a lot of clarifying questions, so bear with me, but if a student is sitting next to somebody in class who ends up testing positive for COVID, are you saying that those people that are next to them don't have to quarantine?
As long as they're asymptomatic, we do notify the household that they were considered a close contact. Our nurses are sending notifications home. But as long as they remain asymptomatic, we are not requiring them to quarantine.
Okay, and that's regardless of if they're, well, I'm thinking high school too, regardless of vaccination or?
Correct.
Okay. And then there is also talk about if their symptoms are something else, for instance, they have strep throat, Is a doctor's note required to prove that they don't have COVID? Do they need a doctor's note saying that?
Yes, as long as they have a negative COVID test result and the doctor says it's something else, they could come back to school.
Okay. So essentially, if they have 2 symptoms, they have to go to the doctor to get back to school before that 10 days.
Right.
Okay. And then I think I just found a typo that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Under the procedure at Rockridge for confirmed case of COVID-19, it says if there is a confirmed case of COVID-19 that attended well infectious, school is supposed to be in there, I would assume.
I'll give my editor a demerit.
Okay. Let's see. And then I had some questions about face coverings, like of athletes. It says that they wouldn't be required to wear them while they're competing, but on the bench or not competing, they would have to wear them. And I just started thinking about different sports, and I was thinking about hockey. That's not really possible in a hockey situation, I don't think. I mean, when they're taking shifts and they're on the bench or whatever, that's not really possible. So that was just a thought. Let's see. And you said about the social distancing that that desks are 3 feet apart. Is that actually happening right now? Are desks 3 feet apart?
Honestly, it's happening where possible. There are some situations in some rooms where it's not. So
my thought is about those classrooms that have a larger amount of students in them, that we've talked about trying to figure something out to make that classroom smaller. Are COVID cases popping up in those larger number classes? And the reason why I asked this question is because, I think that if we should be doing everything that we can be doing, in ensuring that that's happening while we're looking at this option of masking. So if they're not social distancing 3 feet apart in the classrooms, and we have classroom sizes that are pretty large, we should be looking at making those classrooms smaller to keep from potential exposures. That's my thought. And same with the washing of the hands and the sanitizing. Do we have all that stuff? Are we hand sanitizing? Do we have hand sanitizing stations? Are they washing with
certainly
soap
available.
and water?
Yeah, we got a generous donation from Home Depot. We got 2 pallets of Purell hand sanitizer this year, so we have lots out there.
Okay. And I emailed Dr. Schmidt today too about is there enough staffing as well for cleaning, locker rooms and gyms and the classrooms and desks, because that kind of stuff is a lot of added duties onto custodians and things, and I just want to ensure that we have the appropriate amount of staff to be covering for those, making sure that we're doing that. That's it, I think.
To piggyback on one of Brandy's scenarios, when you talk about notifying other parents or families that they might have been in close contact with a student or a faculty member or employee about a possible exposure, how do we handle privacy rights in that situation?
We don't name the individual. It's a general letter that says your student might have been was in contact with someone that tested positive. That is somewhat frustrating. I understand that, but that's the best we can do under HIPAA laws.
Yeah, under HIPAA. I mean, like when the state does testing, and if a group is too small, they don't, because you can identify certain people in certain categories. But, you know, if somebody's in a classroom and you know this person sits on this side and that side, it's pretty easy to figure out who it is. Is that just one of the, I'm just worried about I'm worried about privacy rights
Sure.
of people.
I understand.
Yeah. I mean, HIPAA rules and stuff.
And then about weekly, it says testing, not testing, but about screening and getting, taking a test. We'll be offering a COVID test.
Oh, yeah, certainly for,
It is.
Yeah.
through the state of Minnesota, we did apply for the MDH grant that allows us to be an on-site testing area. So any staff that, at this point, any staff that want to be tested, we're going to offer that once a week for them. It's voluntary. It's not mandatory.
Right, and what test is that?
It's the Q nasal test. It's a rapid test that comes back in about 20 minutes.
Is that the one that's PR something or other?
Yes.
That's the one that there's controversy of how unreliable that is.
Of what?
Of the unreliability of that
Oh,
test.
okay.
Oh, it's been recalled. And then I know I've been doing some reading, and some of those tests, the chemicals in them could be toxic in the test, the nose swabs themselves and things, so I'd like to be real careful about those types of things. Another thing...
We're just so you know, we're not doing it right now because the state is still ironing some of those details out.
Yeah.
So we're still using the old vault test, the spit tests at the moment.
Okay.
Microphone to your
But the
mouth.
state is moving to the Q.
Jeff, could you hold the
it
microphone
says
just a little
we're-
bit closer?
It says we're going to offer that weekly when we can get up and running, is what you're saying? We'll offer it weekly. Okay, and I had asked, even before school started, I think I was maybe it was even last year, about the hand sanitizers, and some of the hand sanitizers have chemicals in them that are toxic. Have we gone through our products to see which ones are safe and which ones aren't?
We're all Purell right now, and we're told that that one is going to be okay.
Okay. Okay, I'd like
Actually,
to make sure.
I should clarify, maybe some people are bringing their own stuff in, but as far as what the school has, it's all Purell.
Okay, because when I was in the office once, there was a spray, there was another one, and I was checking the labels, and then there's
That's fine.
pumps outside of the...
Last year, we were trying to get whatever we could get our hands on, but
Okay.
this year, we're pretty good.
Okay, and just one more comment. I do not support universal masking in our school.
What did you say, Polly?
I do not support universal masking in our district.
Are there any other questions by board members for Jeff?
Well, sorry, I can't.
Just asking, it looks like,
Hey, Jeff, what is the air quality in these buildings like?
Tom, can you
I don't
put the
know about
microphone a
Evelyn.
little closer to your mouth?
What's that?
You got to get it a little closer.
Okay. What is the air quality in this building like in comparison to Evelyn? We have no windows in this building that open.
Right, the HVAC system, though, is fully functional, so we are moving air through. I believe a typical classroom will change air 4 times in an hour.
And it's 25 years old, so it supposedly does
Yep.
that?
Yep. So
How about
it's-
Evelyn? Is that any better? I mean, they have windows that
it's-
open, don't they?
Right, we do have windows there, but it's basically the same deal. I mean, it's not state-of-the-art by any means, but it is doing its job.
That's what we're going to have in the newest school, state-of-the-art.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions by any other board members? With that, is there a motion to,
Can we have open conversation here, not just questions for Jeff? Or are we,
well, I think that would be part of the discussion part of it.
okay, go ahead. Yep, sure. Might as well.
Probably. Is there a motion to approve the Rockridge COVID plan?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Schoberg and support by Tamero. Is there discussion?
Well, I can say something. I can't support the universal masking either. Neighboring districts don't have it. Mountain Iron Buell doesn't have it. Northridge, Massab East, they're not masking. At this time, I think those that want to wear masks are wearing them, and That's just my stance.
And on that note as well, I mean, you come to school, you'll have the mask
Bill,
on.
you're going to have to put that microphone closer.
Okay, you're going to come to school, you'd wear a mask.
Even
but
closer.
But as soon as you leave the school, that mask is off.
Closer, Bill.
Bill, closer.
Closer.
Okay, how's that? Excuse me?
You don't need
It's
to
on.
turn it
All
on
right,
or
so
anything.
here's my deal. You're going to wear a mask during the school, or during school hours, right? But as soon as school's over, you're off the bus or wherever you walk, that mask comes off. You're hanging out with people that are ain't from your district, that are up from unmasked districts. And then you're going to come back to school and you're going to put a mask on. I mean, I just find it that wearing a mask in school would just probably ain't going to work. You know what I'm saying? It's going to slow the spread, but it's just not going to work. You know, I mean, that's my deal.
My concern, you know, and kudos to everybody up here because it is a difficult decision. I mean, I've lost sleep over it, but I weighed the pros and cons of masking and versus not masking, and I think about working in a school district, seeing how kids are wearing those masks. They're down under their chin, they're under their nose, they're snotty, they're full of spit because they're sucking on them or spitting when they're talking. And I mean, how many people are actually washing those masks? So my concern is some of that, because it's said that masking works as long as they're worn correctly. And kids are kids. It's put the mask up, put the mask over your nose. It needs to be over your nose. Johnny, put your mask on. So I think about that. The other thing is, if you're going to Target, you're going to Walmart, you're going to weddings and social functions, and they're not required at those things. Kids are out and about doing those things. And then, like I mentioned, I want to make sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can in the schools to prevent the spread before we have to go to masking. And I've called a number of friends, I've called a number of teachers, I've reached out to a number of nursing professionals that I know as well. And I'm hearing from some of the same things from teachers, that they're not wearing them correctly. We try and tell them to wear them, pull them up, whatever. But in addition to that, hold on, I lost my train of thought. Just hold on, I'll get it. Okay, back to the second grade and sixth grade and in the different classrooms where there are outbreaks. If there are larger classes and they're not able to be that 3 feet apart, we need to do something about that. We need to do something to make sure desks are spaced 3 feet apart. And I talked to some people today, and their kids told them that their desks are next to each other, right next to each other. So I don't know if that's true, but I just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can possibly do before making a mask mandate. I'm not saying that I wouldn't be for a mask mandate, but I think that we need to do better before we make that recommendation.
Any other discussion?
I've got just a few things.
Murray, a little bit closer.
Oh,
Sorry.
how's this?
Better.
Okay. I've just got a few things. Number one, all we heard about last year was the complaining of kids not being in school. Now, this year, we've got the kids in school, and kids are starting to get sick. When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen that they may get sick and we'll have to close again and go to distance learning?
Which is what just happened in
So,
Chisholm.
what I'm saying,
Just keep going, Murray.
Go on with your conversation.
so I put a lot of time and a lot of work into what I did since the agenda came out. And I went through Mayo Clinic, Children's Center, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Johns Hopkins University, University of Cincinnati Children's Hospital for the Asthma, World Health Organization, the CDC's 144,000 school children, they tested. And there is a 17% or 3.5% increase of kids that don't have masks. On July 28th of this summer, the Minnesota Department of Health, masks indoors for all people. So here we are. We have to balance this out. In between the snide comments, the comments that everybody else wants to talk about, we're here trying to make a decision that's going to be best for our kids and our students.
Please, let's have some decorum and respect.
Without closing our schools.
And please watch your language. Swearing is really unnecessary. Thank you. All right, at this point, we have a motion and support. Yes. Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Director Schoberg.
Well, just to piggyback on Mary's comments a little bit, I do think education from preschool all the way through the highest levels took a huge hit last year. And the primary reason it did that, the primary reason people fell behind, and we all know that people fell behind and people are still behind where they should be, was because they weren't able to come to school. And in my opinion, we should do everything we absolutely can to try and keep those kids in the school.
Any other discussion?
Well, I would agree with that, you know, but I've also talked to a lot of parents who are willing to send their kids and will send their kids with masks on. It's an option for them, and I believe Mr. Tezik said earlier that you know, he hasn't seen or heard anybody being singled out because they're wearing their mask. I think that, in my opinion, it's a compromise. It's saying, you know, we're willing to, you know, we're strongly recommending this. Parents, if you're wanting to ask your kids, we will support that. Yeah, you know, we're supporting that and encouraging that. So, you know, and a lot of people reached out to me, level-headed individuals that are like, it should be a parent's choice, so.
All right, is there any other discussion? At this time, we have a motion and support. All those in favor of adopting the plan signify by saying aye. Aye. And actually, maybe I'll do a roll call so I can, Director Lotiger?
No.
Director Schoberg?
Yes.
Director Reardon?
Yes.
Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Addy?
No.
Director Yuhan?
No.
Director Tamaro?
Yes.
Director Sorkin?
No.
Director Sundquist is a yes. Motion passes 5-4. Agenda item 5.5 is consideration of making June 1st, 2022 the last day of school for Evelyn Gilbert seniors instead of June 2nd, 2022 as determined by the district calendar. Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to allow the seniors to be done one day prior. I think that's what's been done in the past. Has it been one day, or has it been, I think it's been one day. And I think that we should continue that.
So there's a motion by Director Lotiger, and is there support?
Support.
Support by Director Yuhan. Any discussion?
I couldn't hear that well.
Director Lotiger made a motion to allow the seniors in Evelyn Gilbert to be done on June 1st instead of June 2nd as it says on the calendar. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 5.7, consider approval of contract for Bob Voss, Director of Transportation for 2020 to 2021, $82,000, and for 2021 to 2022, $82,000. Is there
Support.
motion by Reardon and support by
Addy.
Addy? Any discussion?
I have a question, and my questions and comments actually can apply to all four of these contracts. And generally, I'm not aware of the full board discussing these contracts, the ones to come, and the ones that were passed at the last board meeting. The board never had a closed session for negotiation strategy. I don't believe we've, as a school board, talked about counter offers, and I still don't know where the recommendations for these contracts and salaries came from. I've asked Superintendent Schmidt, and I haven't received an answer from him. I know that some committee meetings have taken place, and I was part of that committee at one point in time. As you know, I've been removed from all committees, but I don't believe that there has been a committee meeting held for these non-contracted individual contracts since then. So does anybody actually, but myself, have you figured out the percentage increase for all of these, for Mr. Voss and for the other three this board meeting, and for the three that you approved last meeting? And the salary parts alone are all across the board, from 2% up to 21%, and from amounts from $1,100 up to almost $17,000 in salary increase alone. And I don't think there's been enough discussion about it. It's very inconsistent, and I think they're unreasonable. I don't know what went into these decisions. Can anybody answer me about the negotiation or renegotiation or counteroffers or recommendations? I didn't get a recommendation from the committee for any of these contracts. They just appeared on the consent agenda with no discussion and no debate the last meeting, and now they actually are an agenda item, but I don't, there's not a lot of information about this.
Members of the school board, I can probably help explain the process that we use and answer some of Director Sorkin's question. The committee, you do have a committee that handles negotiations. The committee did meet 3 separate times to talk about the individual contracts. Director Sorkin, I sent you the dates for those 3 committee meetings.
Yes, you did.
They did meet, they did talk about those. The very first meeting, each individual who's on an individual contract came up to the group and said, here's what I would like to get. Doesn't mean what they're going to get. Said what they would like to get, and the committee talked about that behind closed doors with Spencer Ani, the business manager, and myself. They talked, and then we decided it was important because the individual contracts were all over the place, because they're coming from the old Virginia and they're coming from the old Evelyn Gilbert. And so the number of vacation days, personal days, how many days you're working was all over the place. So the negotiation committee told us to standardize the 2-year contracts as much as possible. So we did. So we came up with recommendations for the negotiating committee as to standardize all of those individual contracts. And then those individual contracts were then given to each one individually. Some of them have been thinking about it for a while, and so what you're seeing tonight, and you've seen in a prior board meeting, these are the recommendations coming from the negotiations committee. We're not giving you anything that the negotiations committee has not seen, that they are not recommending. However, you are the school board. The committee only recommends. You are the final body to say yes or no, and so that's why they're coming to you. When you look at all of the 2-year contracts, the actual total increase of all of the individual 2-year contracts is actually, Spencer recently recalculated it, it's actually closer to 3.8%. When we first did it, it was 4.8%, because we wanted that in line with AFSCME contract, because that's where the AFSCME contract settled. So that some of them might be a little higher, absolutely. But that also means that some of the raises are a little bit lower, or some individuals, there was no recommended increase. But the total increase, the average statistical increase, was actually under 4% for all of the individuals on 2-year contracts. So as we get them back from the individuals, we're bringing them to the school board for your final consideration. That's the process, what happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I asked about a distinction also with you, Noel, about the average statistical average across the board, but when you bring somebody up, you bring somebody else down, and that might be the case, but there's such a wide spring. I was speaking of salary only. If you put in the total cost with the benefits and everything, that might be true, but that's not telling the whole story. The whole story is one person got over a $16,000 salary increase alone. One of them on the agenda today got $1,100. And I said the percentages went from 2% salary only to 21%. And I don't think the rest of the board members know that. I am suggesting we have a closed session to discuss these contracts, negotiation strategy, and get the details and see if we, as a group, not just 3 members of a committee, think that these are in line and right and fair. And I doubt that the public knows the details of these, because and I doubt that the rest of the school board members do either, other than maybe the 3 that were on the committee. And I was the one, when I was still on the committee, that requested a spreadsheet, because it was there were so many variables by so many different requests from the individuals. And when you start studying that spreadsheet, then you see these things pop out. And just because the average dropped down to 3.63 from 4.81, well, I noticed that a big part of it is a $7,000 difference between Jojo Scott's previous salary of $87,000, and we offered the new guy $87,000, and he's getting $80,000. So there's $7,000 right there. So I think we need to study this more and see if they're, if this is what we really want to do and what's right and fair.
And that is up to the school board. I just want to say that the one increase you're talking about, I assume you're talking about Shannon Cush Jeffrey?
No, I'm not.
There wasn't one that had a $60,000 increase.
I'm talking about Bill Bryce and $16,841.
He did not have a $60,000 increase.
16.
16?
Yes.
And that I absolutely is true.
21% from his previous
And on the
contract.
issue of statistics, this average is the statistical average.
You know what they say, figures can lie and liars can figure, and you can manipulate, statistics
We have a
any way you
motion.
want.
We have a support. I'm going to end the discussion and ask that all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries 8-1. 5.8, consider approval of contract for Stephanie McDermott, finance assistant / payroll for 2020-2021 for $46,476, and the same for the next year.
So moved.
Motion by Schoberg and support by Lotiger. Any discussion?
My comments and my discussion is still the same. I believe the correct thing to do is for the other ones, we can't stop the ones that have already been approved, but to have a closed session for the whole board to discuss these contracts and the ones in the future to come.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion passes 8-1. Agenda item 5.9, consider approval of contract for Deborah Weir, executive assistant / HR for 2021-2022 at $59,000.
So moved.
Support.
Lotiger makes the motion with support by Anderson. Any discussion?
Same comments.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries 8-1. 5.10, consider approval of contract for Sierra Braley, data specialist and coordinator, one-on-one coordinator for 2021-2022 at $59,160.
So moved.
Motion by Anderson.
Support.
Support by Addy. Any discussion?
Same comments.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion passes 7-1 with Director Schoberg unavailable. Meeting announcements, the next regular board meeting will be Monday, October 11th, 2021 at 6 PM here in the auditorium. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Can we take a recess?
Before we start the working session. So we'll come back here at 6:41.
We're live.
All right, if everyone wants to take their seats, we're ready to start the working session.
What's that? Not bad.
All right, so we're ready to start the working session, and as we get started, I'm just going to invite Dr. Schmidt up to kind of introduce the process and how we'll do this.
Thank you, members of the school board and members of the audience and those who are watching at home on video or YouTube. Tonight is an extraordinary night, and I want to make sure that the board, you understand how extraordinary this is, because we're about to have members of the community come up and say anything they want to you courteously on any topic that they would like for 3 minutes. Briefly, the background of this one is that there were some topics that came up in the community. We had 2 community meetings, and you need to understand how unique these are. You are the only school board in the entire state of Minnesota who had 2 community meetings on volatile topics that were the topic of discussion everywhere. You are also the only school board who has opened up your board meeting to have the public come forward in addition to the community meetings and talk to you and tell you anything that they would like about any topic they would like. This is extremely rare, what is happening here tonight and the sequence of events that has brought us to this point. Here's how the process will work. Every member of the audience who wishes to come up and speak, you have told us you would like to speak. We have given you a number. You picked up the number at a table when you came in. The board chair will run the meeting and follow the sequence, and it's very simple. Whatever order you showed up tonight, that's the order they're speaking. There is no preordained order. There is no attempt to put certain speakers in a certain area. It's just whichever one showed up first, and who is second, and then who is third, and so on and so forth. So when we start the community meeting, which is going to start just briefly, what I'd like you to do, so we go quickly, is number 1, you're going to come up over here to this corner, and when your number is called, you will go up to the mic. When number 1 goes to the mic, would number 2 please stand up and then quietly go over here, and probably number 3 too, in case someone took a card but they're not here. And that way we won't have long breaks as we're waiting for the next person to come up. So who is out at whatever number is at the mic, if you're next, please come up to this corner and be ready, so when this individual is done speaking, the next person can just come up. As far as talking into the microphone, most people don't talk into a microphone. It's not common. Please talk loudly, louder than your normal voice would be, and please try to enunciate your words a little clearer. I know it's an unusual situation. This will help everyone in the audience hear what you are saying, and it will also help the school board also hear what you are saying. So maybe slow down a little bit, enunciate your words, and maybe project. Your old high school speech teacher was telling you to project. And last thing, we're also asking, and we said it this way, we know that not everyone will agree with everyone on every topic that is going to come up tonight. No matter what you believe, please be courteous, and please be respectful to those people who are coming up to the mic to say whatever they're going to say. That is what we would ask any kids in our schools to do, so please be courteous and respectful to whoever is at the mic, no matter what they are saying. So those are the rules that we set up for tonight. Madam Chair, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Schmidt.
Question, they have to state whether or not their child
Oh, thank you. I forgot
Rockridge.
something. The teacher always forgets one thing and has to go back and say one more thing. When you come up here, we also ask, and I think this is fair, please say who you are, because this is a public event. You're being recorded. Say who you are, and say, do you live in the Rockridge School District? Just say, you can simply say, my name is Noel Schmidt. I live in the Rockridge School District. I really do. And then, do you have kids in the school district? So your name, do you live in the Rockridge School District, and do you have kids in the school district? And then say whatever you would like to say. There's a timer over here, in courtesy to everyone else, 3 minutes.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I don't think what it's pertinent whether you have children in the school or not. There's many of us that
Director
don't.
Sorkin, that's the rules that we've set, and that's what we're
Well,
asking.
I wasn't part of setting these rules. I'd like to know who set the
Director
rules.
Sorkin?
Who set the rules?
We're going to start.
Did you
I would
set the
invite-
rules? Did you set the rules?
No, I did not.
Oh, because I didn't have any input, and I don't think it matters because
None of the board members had any input. And
Some
Director
people-
Sorkin, this is the time for community input, not your input.
I
At
would
this
just
time, I would
suggest to the
call
people,
number
you don't
one,
have to answer those
Lisa
questions.
Tweeten to
And
the
you don't even
microphone,
have to say
please.
if you're in the school district
Director
or not.
Sorkin,
so.
please be courteous of our members.
I'm really sorry, I forgot my PPE. You all know what that is, right? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Lisa Tweeten. I live in the Rockridge School District. I have 3 children that graduated from Evelyn Gilbert, and my husband graduated from Evelyn Gilbert in 1967. He's a little old. So what I really want to talk about is like 2 things. First, I want to talk about the Roberts Rules of Order. I'm very disappointed in my school board because they're not following the Roberts Rules of Order. We want to have a school board that knows how to do that. So please make notes. And if people aren't doing that, then somebody who is responsible, somebody should be making note of that person in case they need a list of all of the naughty things that they've done, to be brought up at a later time, and then they no longer can be on committees. So we need to take care of that. That's all I have to say about that. We'll just end that there. The other thing I want to talk to, and I guess I'm late because the masks are already approved. There's some people in our audience that have sad faces about that. But why do they have sad faces? Don't they want their children protected from this pandemic? I'm asking, I'm wondering. You want them protected. But let me tell you, there are 47 studies done on masks, and all of them proved to be faulty. All proved to be faulty. And 32 of those studies proved that people still get ill. Not just COVID, but other illnesses when they wear a mask. Okay? Now, I should have said this at the beginning. I don't speak lightly of these things. I know about school boards and schools and teachers and students. I'm a retired teacher. In fact, I'm a retired mental health practitioner, and I've read all of your minds. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. Got to keep it a little light, right? So, but anyways, we need to follow the science. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Number 2, John Westby.
My name is John Westby. Can you all hear me?
You can.
I live in Evelyn, and I have a bunch of horses in this race. They're called grandchildren in Virginia and Evelyn Gilbert. I would like to address my few comments tonight on critical race theory. Now, I get it. It's not a part of the curriculum. But having said that, simply because it's not stated as such, that simply gives you people plausible deniability, is all it does. CRT by any other name is still CRT. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and smells like a duck, it's a duck. The second thing I'd like to mention is Mrs. Radke is correct, based on her Sunday editorial in the Mesabi Tribune. The parents are knocking at the door, and not Ragnarok, the apocalyptic god. That's because he's already in the room. Number 3, you cannot, none of you, nobody here as a matter of fact, and there's a bunch of people here who know exactly what I'm talking about, but no one here can presume on me or my family what I think. Because of the color of my skin, I'm racist, which is central to CRT. I get that too. And if you're going to adhere to those principles, you have to start right there, because everybody here has got white skin. So there's only one person in the history of the entire world that ever was, is now, or ever will be that knows my heart. And it's not here. His name is Jesus Christ. Nowhere in history or in the Bible does it declare that when Jesus Christ shed his precious blood, his death, burial, and resurrection was specifically for white people. Now I say that for this reason, because he's perfectly colorblind. That's where I live, and my family. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3.
What's your name?
Can I move it because I'm short?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Drianna Plaisted, and I am part of the Rockridge School District with 4 children. And I'm a daughter of a domestic violence survivor, and I'm a friend of a domestic violence survivor. And I would like to see more education and programs for domestic violence in our school district, because I do not want to be the mother of a domestic violence victim. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence has found that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience physical or sexual violence, stalking, injuries, and/or PTSD in their lifetime. We all know someone who is a survivor of domestic violence, whether they have spoken up or not. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men have been raped in their lifetime, and almost half were raped by an acquaintance. Of these, 45.4% of women and 29% of men survivors were raped by an intimate partner. Why are those statistics important? 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year. If there's 30 kids in a class, that's 2 kids in each class. And 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to the violence. 1 in 3 children who witness the domestic violence are also child abuse victims. Children who witness domestic violence are 3 times as likely as their peers to engage in violent behavior. No child is too young to be impacted, so why is there a lack of education and support for children in schools? There should be age-appropriate programs for all grade levels. Children who are exposed to these situations may be coming to school hungry with a lack of decent sleep. They can have increased anxiety and a lack of time to finish schoolwork. All of this can impact their academic engagement and success. Traumatized children may cause disruptions, perform poorly, and engage in or experience bullying as well. On average, it takes a victim 7 times to leave a violent relationship. The children have no control over these situations, and many are too intimidated to tell or don't know that what is happening isn't normal. Abusive relationships do not always start with domestic violence. There are ways that we can help our children recognize toxic or abusive relationship with friends and eventually their partners. Let's not let our children grow up without being aware. How many people do we know who have been abused? They often wonder, how did it get this bad, or how did I get here? We need to be more supportive for children who are experiencing violence at home and help them understand what a healthy, loving relationship is supposed to look like. One of our local police officers said today that we need to give victims the chance to speak, to potentially have survivors tell their stories in schools. There are multiple daily assault calls on the Iron Range, but he said many don't feel safe enough to call. There is no longer a youth shelter as of July 1st this year. The local sexual assault program participates in National Night Out and has visited multiple grades, including Head Start, since the 80s. The director today...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get her name?
Number 5, please. Sean Anderson.
Hi, my name is Sean Anderson. I used to have 2 kids in the schools district. But last year I had to pull one out because you guys don't follow your bullying policies. Instead, you pick and choose what you want to do. And now this year I've had to give one kid, my other kid that's in his class, school, a ride to school every single day because he doesn't like wearing masks. And they're forced on the school bus. So by forcing masks in the school system, you're going to lose a lot of kids. And they will not come back. These kids have been running around with each other all summer long with no masks on and are getting by just fine. It's important for them to see faces in school and recognize and learn things that way. You don't see nothing or recognize somebody by having a mask on your face. One other question is how much money are you getting from the state for passing this? There's $441 million being given out to the schools who passed this. How much are you guys getting?
This is just for listening, sir.
Yeah, well, you need to lose your position.
And I apologize, I skipped over Mr. Tom Walton, who was number 4.
I'm Tom Walton from Evelyn. Despite Noel's glowing introduction where he talks about discussion, you're not having any discussion. And part of the feedback I gave you at those 2 meetings was you need to start answering our questions in public. You work for us. No, you don't work for you. Get it through your head. So I have a question. When are you going to consider the offer for the Manual Arts Building? Huh? You think just because you threw away unfinished business, you don't have to give a professional consideration to the realtor that came up with the offer? How disrespectful. You people were elected to take care of business, not ignore it. And for your information, the ethics complaint that I filed with the board that you so quickly threw away, I packaged that again and updated it, and I refiled it with the Minnesota Board of School Administrators. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6, Terry Radke.
My name is Terry Radke. Our kids went through the district. We're taxpayers in the district. And I'm here tonight to talk about August 8th of this year. August 8th of this year, a person who represents the district put a letter in the paper, and I have some issues with it. I'm going to quote you what was in the paper, or part of it. It begins with, what is critical race theory? In short, critical race theory states that racism is embedded in our laws and institutions and is not just the biases of individuals and their prejudices. It's a theoretical framework taught in some universities and colleges. Some feel that we in K through 12 education are teaching this to our students. Spoiler alert, we're not doing this in our K through 12 education. This quoted the letter that was in the paper. So I want to read to you from the June 11th, 2020 staff letter from the Eveleth-Gilbert School Board, Joint Powers Board, and the Virginia School Board. This is the letter itself. says, our society is being traumatized by the systemic institutional racism that pervades the structures that govern and rule our citizenry. So back to the paper, spoiler alert, we're not teaching this in K through 12. That seems to be a little contradiction there. And then, also, it says here in the letter in the paper, some feel that critical race theory stigmatizes white culture into feeling blame and shame for being white. We in the K through 12 education some think we're teaching this to our students. Spoiler alert, we're not doing this in our K through 12 education. Well, I beg to differ with you. Black students in our school, this is again from the June 2020, black students in our school are risking their safety to bravely stand against white supremacy in the midst of a global pandemic. How will RRPS, Rockridge, work with non-black staff and students to remind them that their inherent bias runs deep and that they are each responsible for unlearning racism? How is the district addressing and continuing to address systemic racism? I have a question for you board members. Do you agree with this letter? Do you agree with the June 20th letter? I want an answer.
Thank you. Number 7 is Lisa Westby.
I'm going to turn it this way because you people matter. I have a myriad of questions, and I thought this was going to be a question and answer thing, and you guys were going to address our questions, but I'm gathering we're not going to do that tonight. We all started coming out here because we had a concern.
Could you state your full name and whether or not you have kids in the district?
Lisa Westby. I have family, 3 generations that have come to this school.
Are you from the district?
From the district. I started coming here because I was concerned about what our kids were going through in this district. My kids had a wonderful school life here. It's changed, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing the way that you guys treat each other up there. It's embarrassing the way that you treat the parents out here. They are who you're working for, whether you're getting paid or not. You're up there for them and for their kids. It was taken out in the paper that we were an organized group. That's a lie. That's a lie. It was a full-page ad in the Manny Shopper. Whoever put that in, it's a lie. There's none of us here that are organized. We're parents that have gotten together that care about our children. Shame on you. Shame on you to do that. None of our questions have been answered, whether a teacher has gotten paid, what they've gotten paid, the equity officer, what they've gotten paid, and critical race theory. It doesn't happen in Rockridge. And yet, here it is.
Upside down.
Sorry, here it is. A straight road for a white kid and a wavy one for a black kid. This is what our high schoolers are getting taught in English class. No critical race theory? Another lie. You guys are lying to us. And that's what keeps on bringing us back. Why don't you talk frankly with us about what you're planning on doing? And then, do you agree with this? Do you agree with oppressors and being oppressed and oppressors and separating students on those?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 8, Donna Pettinelli.
Donna Pettinelli.
We're going to turn it because they need to hear this and they need to see my face. My name is Donna Pettinelli, and I live in the district, and I potentially have a child that could hopefully someday go back to public school, but that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes. Thank you. I and a few other mothers in the district had a few questions for you, and I'm going to start with this because of what was displayed a few moments ago when you guys passed the mask thing and behaved the way you did. Coercion and to manipulate a child's mind into making a medical decision based on what others are doing, and by the board making a decision on quarantine time based on if they've been vaccinated or not. Do you understand how you guys are molding these children's minds to accept manipulation? To make a medical decision, to get something injected into them that if they do that and something happens, you guys aren't accountable. Think about this before you make a decision. At one moment, these children aren't old enough to understand whether they should wear a mask or not. And you're going to accept policy that will manipulate their minds into thinking that they need a vaccine. They're old enough to make that decision without parental consent, because that's what it is. You have to understand how the decisions you guys make up there matter. And you guys are shaping these children. Everything you do, every decision you make, you will be accountable, whether it's down here on earth or it's at the judgment seat. You will be accountable. Does the Minnesota Teachers Union and District promote and support the teaching of critical race theory? I want that question answered, so do all of these parents. If you're telling us that CRT is not and will not be taught in public schools, why are teachers' unions sending out newsletters to educators with articles titled, "Teaching the Truth, Critical Race Theory"? We have our hands on more information than you think we do, okay?
Thank you. Number 9, Kirsten Kling.
Who's the next one?
Kirsten Kling. Kirsten Kling. If she's not here, we'll just move on to number 10, Deanna Mikulich.
She's coming.
And if you could just state your name and whether or not you have kids in the district. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deanna Mikulich. I have 3 children that attend the Evelyn Gilbert schools. I do live in the district. I am a social worker and a psychotherapist in training. I am here to discuss the vast and growing concern of bullying in our schools, at the school functions, and the impact that it is having on our children. Our children do not feel safe in our schools, at school functions, and during transportation times. After talking with our superintendent, I quickly realized that he only believed it to be an issue if it was multiple children. It is problematic if one of our children do not feel safe. We as a community and school district need to address this. Some suggestions would be resource officers, not only in Virginia, identifying problem children and keeping them from school events, having the staff who are checking tickets know how to identify who is not allowed. Bathrooms are outside of the football stadium and need to be monitored. Monitoring the halls and to and from the bus. The system of intervention needs to be activated for those who are engaging in bullying. Bullying is a repeated action, threat, verbal, physical assault. Educating staff to intervene when verbal abuse is happening is essential in stopping the behaviors. Bullying should not only be addressed by the principal, but by all staff. Counselors should be an active participant in helping to address the mental health piece. When discussing this with the school district administrator, I was told teachers are encouraged to monitor the transition times between classes. We send our students to school daily believing the notion that our students are safe. However, staff cannot guarantee our students are safe in all spaces like the hallways. A solution to this could be mandating that teachers monitor hallways, create a schedule for staff, or have the counselor, principal, and other office staff monitor hallways. If school teachers aren't the answer, the school district needs to employ staff to ensure our children are safe. Our children have the right to a free and public education that includes being safe. Bullying is not something that we should tolerate. Bullying is not a rite of passage and just a part of the school experience. We are responsible for changing this narrative. By schools not having preventative measures, it continues to leave all the pressure on children being victimized. Children are constantly being told if you don't report it, there's nothing we can do to help. Children do not report because they are putting themselves at risk and a potential to teasing, intimidation, and further bullying. I am expecting the school board to take action and recognize the safety of our children is a critical issue, and the school board should be a role in moving the district forward.
Thank you very much. Number 11 is Cindy Loeb. I'm not sure if it's Loeb or Loeb.
Good evening. Thank you so much for giving us this time.
And if you could just, I'm sorry, just state your name and whether or not you.
I'll get to it. My name is Cindy Loeb, and I live in Markham, Minnesota. I know some of you. I'd like to say, first of all, you're not my enemy. I hope I can get through this without crying. I have some grandchildren that live in the school district, but they're decided not to attend Rockridge. I'm sorry. I should just speak from there. You are not the enemy, but we can be used by the enemy. We have a war going on in our country right now. It's to take away our freedoms and change our nation at the very core of the things that we stand on. Many things are being used for this, but it all is surrounding this COVID-19. I could name names, people behind it, but you look it up, look up Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development. But all these issues that we are fighting is because we want to save our country, we want to save our freedoms. And I think that many of you want those same things, except that maybe the educators need to be educated. You see, when we go to school, we are all indoctrinated, whether it was in elementary, high school, or in the colleges and universities that we've gone to. Colleges and universities have changed over the years, and our enemy is using these to indoctrinate all of us. I will give you an example. When I was in high school, in our science books, there was a picture of a baby at that time they called a fetus. And years later, come to find out that was not really a baby. It was a frog or fish or something goofy like that. But we were led to believe that that was true. Another thing I was taught and drilled into my head that the world is overpopulated. I have lots of room in my community. We found that was a lie too. Because
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 12 is Tammy Petrini. Ma'am, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Tammy Petrini is waiting. We're trying to give everyone an opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tammy Petrini. I have a recent 2016 graduate and currently have a 10th grader in this school district. I'm here today because I'm concerned about CRT in the K through 12 schools. I attended the public meetings at the Parkview Learning Center in August and left there feeling confident that CRT would not be taught here after several reassurances from Dr. Schmidt and a school board member and several teachers in my small group at that meeting. Much to my surprise, on day 2 of an 11th grade American literature class, an assignment included a game board, which I think Lisa held up here, labeled The American Dream. And in my humble opinion, it had CRT content that is atrocious and offensive on many levels. I sent out an email on September 13th with my concerns to every school board member and to the superintendent, and I don't have time to read the superintendent's entire response, but some of you may have received the same email as me. His answer labeled the game board as political cartoon. He said it was a small part of the class, and since the political cartoon was not taught as a correct view of the theme of equality, and since he viewed it as a small section of one lesson in a larger course, in his opinion, it is not evidence of critical race theory being taught here. And I disagree. You can say it's not being taught, you can call it whatever you want, but it is what many parents feared, and in my opinion, is 100% CRT material, and it was allowed in our school. I guess I should say shame on us for believing you, but where do we go from here? We can't even agree on what CRT is, but I do know one thing, that this kind of material, whatever you want to call it, we don't want it here. This was allowed in our classroom, only promotes divisiveness and is not helpful at any age, especially K through 12. In closing, I was hoping to hear from each school board member about this matter, and I feel this material, about the material in this class mentioned, and if they feel this is CRT. And since I never received a single answer or email back from a single board member on anything other than one from Polly advising me how to become a speaker at a future meeting, I would like you to address those concerns, or are you as a board allowing the superintendent to speak on your behalf on this subject? I look forward to your answers, as I know this will help me and a lot of people in the audience make a better decision come election time for the school boards. I know you've had some tough decisions, but this should be an easy one. Don't allow this in the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 13, Teresa Knife Chief.
What's the name?
Teresa Knife Chief.
Buju memengwa mikwanikwe indigenous cause wajash dindundem. And this is very hard for me to speak to all of you because I'm Native American. And so coming into predominantly white school, I should say that I'm the Indian Ed Director for the district. And so I've been working very hard, and I do want to congratulate the superintendent and the school board, and I want to congratulate many of the teachers here who have been wanting to learn culture, wanting to learn. We all live together, don't we? We all live together, and I want to learn your history and your history. And teachers come in and ask me to come in and teach about Ojibwe. But actually, it becomes, let's learn about everyone. Where are you from? You're from German? What do you do at Christmas? You're Irish? What do you do for your culture? We want to celebrate diversity. We want to celebrate everyone. And I applaud the teachers for being brave to come and ask me. I'm not the expert on Ojibwe or culture or anything. I want to applaud the teachers here for wanting to, as a parent, I'm a parent of 4 grown kids. I want them to learn all cultures and appreciate everyone and ask questions. Ask questions if you don't know. Don't assume things. So I do applaud you guys, and thank you. My notes here, I'm scrambling, but fiercely united. We had a young lady come talk about domestic violence. We have people in our school that are gay or lesbian. We have students in our school that are all colors. We all belong. We are fiercely united. There's no such thing as when our teachers teach diversity, we're not trying to put anyone down. We're trying to bring everyone up, the same level. The only thing that when I talk to kids and they come crying to me because someone is teasing them about being Native, I say, just keep your head up because you are strong. We just got to educate more people about what being Native American is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 15 is Jill Clennet, or no, I'm sorry, number
14.
14 is Lori Ismail.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Ismail. I both live in the Rockridge School District and my daughter is a student at VHS. Further, I have gratefully taught countless incredible young people in this building for the past 25 years. I am licensed to teach math in grades 7 to 12 and licensed to teach health in grades kindergarten through 12. Personally, I'm a cancer survivor and currently struggle with autoimmune issues and multiple chemical sensitivities. These personal health journeys have brought me beyond my health degree to a place of daily health study and research. On another note, I have had friends and family members who have died or had serious medical complications due to COVID-19, whether it was their diagnosis or an adverse vaccine reaction. Although the great majority of my time has been spent teaching mathematics, my true passion lies in teaching health. As many of my students will attest to this, the first questions asked in my classroom were often not, when are we going to have our first math test? But instead, when are we going to have the water talk, which my annual lesson on the importance of water was fondly referred to as. To me, my students' health, both mental health and physical health, is my utmost concern. As a teacher, it is my duty to remain a nonpartisan and positive influence in the lives of my students that are in my daily care while keeping their health and safety number one. Over the past couple of years, the health situation of our planet has been difficult and unfortunately extremely divisive. I am saddened that an incredible amount of censorship of real health information has occurred. This overall one-sided wealth of information has led to extreme fear. Fear not only continues to divide people, but is also depressing our immune systems. Where, in the news or anywhere, where is the true preventative health education Information that must be emphasized is proper nutrition, sleep, exercise, stress management, hygiene, vitamins, minerals. I could go on for years. I do not believe that it is the best interest of a school district, the great majority of which people are not health professionals, decide on medical decisions for the individual, especially for our children. One partisan decision would be.
Thank you. I apologize. Number 15 is Jill Clennon.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jill Clennon. I live in the district, I have a student in the district, and I have taught in the Eveleth and Virginia communities for 16 years. Many people in the audience tonight believe that public education has an agenda to make white kids feel guilt or shame because of the past ills of society. They believe that teachers are instilling self-loathing and hatred between white students and students of color. They believe this because they've been told that by news pundits or groups such as Citizens for Renewing America. What they do not know is nothing could be further from the truth. Teachers are teaching kindness, empathy, and tolerance. They are teaching students to recognize that each individual comes from a different background and that diversity should be celebrated. They are teaching students how to talk with those who are different from them and how to validate their own feelings as well as the feelings of others, even when they don't agree. That is social emotional learning. To teach kids how to judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. What they do not understand is that culturally relevant teaching is not teaching that all minorities are oppressed and that whites are the oppressors. Culturally relevant teaching is understanding and shining a light on the lived experiences of every student, no matter their race or ethnicity. Culturally relevant teaching gives voice to those who have not been able to share their story, gives recognition to the struggles that sometimes go unnoticed, and gives praise to the achievements of all Americans. Culturally relevant teaching is a way for students to better understand themselves and the world around them. Culturally relevant teaching attempts to make every hill and valley low and make the crooked places straight for all students. One of the goals of education is to teach kids how to read critically, think critically, and write well-supported claims. To teach kids how to look at any text, fiction or nonfiction, any news article, advertisement, or blog post, and be able to identify what that argument is about and decide for themselves if they agree or disagree. We cannot do this if we don't look at all perspectives and all experiences. We cannot do this if we don't learn about our history. We cannot do this if we don't learn about the lived experiences of every American citizen, from the beginning of our great nation to modern times. We cannot do this if we marginalize the experiences of people of color by not giving them voice. We cannot do this if we cannot have civil discourse. In order to revitalize the American spirit, to work toward a more perfect union, we need to work together, learn from each other, and have empathy for those whose path to the American dream.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 16, Jack Gertzmacher.
Jill Clennon. Jill Clennon.
Good evening. My name is Jack Gritzmacher. I have 4 boys, 3 of whom have graduated from Eveleth Gilbert, and 1 who's a sophomore at Rockridge High School. I'm also a 35-year veteran in the classroom, 29 of which were spent at Eveleth Gilbert and Rockridge. I don't have a prepared statement, but I would like to speak from my heart. And the person who spoke before me, I give my full support to Jill Clennon, and and all of the other teachers who strive within these hallowed walls to teach students to be compassionate, to be understanding of others who are different. And I'm sorry that some people take a lesson out of context and read into it judgment and blame and cause this to be something that it's not. I'm not sure what you intend to do, but I hope this doesn't turn into the brown-shirted movement of Nazi Germany where books were burned. That would be tragic. All of us are in this together, the school board, the community, the students, and the previous speakers, the last two speakers, I thought did an excellent job in presenting some of the sympathies that need to be considered here. If I have any time left, I would like to yield my time to Margaret Schley, who does not need a microphone, and she's not on the speaking rostrum, but I would like to hear what Margaret has to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 17 is Danny Piratos. I'm probably not saying that correctly, and so if you could state your name for the record when you get here. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Bonjour, I'm Danny Paratus. I am from the Lake Vermilion Reservation. I have 2 boys in the Rock Ridge School District. I did live in the district last year and have since moved back to the reservation. Thank you guys for still having space for them. They really love their school. So I was not able to make the workshop on critical race theory, and so I'm sharing my commentary now. Other educational institutions are training our next generation to have a high level of understanding when it comes to local, state, federal, and world systems on the complexities of race. In my work meetings and in other volunteer circles and board roles I have, colleagues in and out of Zoom meetings are talking about the intersectionality of race in our society, racial justice in our banking institutions, racial justice in food, racial justice in transportation, racial justice in housing, racial justice in the environment, racial justice in business and small enterprise, racial justice in public health, racial justice in technology. So all of our contemporary industries and different sectors are talking about race. Already many people have the training of how to talk about these sensitive issues in a good way, whatever side of the fence they may be on. Already these conversations are happening and they're not going away. And I imagine in many colleges these conversations are happening. So no doubt our students will encounter a discussion on race. It's inevitable. I don't think it's fair to rob our students of the education on race theory, where we now have a good opportunity of providing quality training in safe classrooms, having safe places to talk about these things at Rock Ridge. I trust the school district to employ loving teachers as it does to keep the classroom respectful and to have a positive learning environment. I know and trust our teachers that they can hold safe spaces for our kiddos to learn. I want Rock Ridge to be the school that empowers its students to have respectful, intelligent discussion on sensitive topics and not to shrink away from them for fear of shame. We must face these challenges bravely together and provide tools for our students to have these conversations because their future bosses, their employees, and other community members need them to be well informed as good leaders and good teammates. And our students do not deserve to be caught off guard when these discussions rise in work and life. So let them develop their own opinions from full education on the subject. It teaches critical thinking, empathy, and a way forward. Let's give this as a gift to Rockridge students for a more just society. So we know we may go faster alone, but we go farther together. And critical race theory teaches us how to work together across cultural lines. And that is so powerful. So please, continue to allow our teachers to teach. Thank you.
Thank you. 18, Nathan Shawless.
Thank you. Thank you. You actually pronounced my name right. Most people around here can't get that. But thank you guys for taking the time and listening. I'm Nathan Shawless. I have 4 kids right now. For right now, we're homeschooling. The Lord's allowed that to happen, so for the time being. You guys may know me, may not. I don't know any of you guys, but it's neither here nor there. I want to read some scripture, and this could change your life. Like the next couple minutes could change your life. So I'll just read this for you. It says, these are Jesus' words. He says, "Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. Those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will be recognized them by their fruits. Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name?' Then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.' Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell and the floods came, the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, because it had been built on the rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." I just want to invite you tonight that if you're not in the Lord Jesus Christ, taste and see that the Lord is good. 17 years ago, He changed my life, and just telling people the gospel, what Christ did on the cross. He died to pay for your sins. And He says in Revelation, He says, "I am coming soon." And He says, "The Spirit and the bride say, 'Come.' Let the one who hears say, 'Come.' And let the one who is thirsty."
Thank you. 19,
Thank you.
Laura Johnson.
My name is Laura Johnson, and I work in the nurse's office here at Roosevelt and VHS. My kids are and they're ecstatic to not have to wear a mask. I want to say that I am emotionally, physically, and mentally drained with COVID, and it's just the beginning of the year. Our days are consumed with calls, emails, and kids being sent by teachers because of symptoms. The nurses cannot get their daily jobs done because everything is COVID. We are getting yelled at by parents because we can't keep up with all the messages and trying to manage who is gone, who is being tested, who is sitting next to who, etc. We have diabetics, daily meds, injuries, health plans, and many numerous daily duties to tend to, but we can't get our job done to the fullest because everything's about COVID. It also makes me wonder how much learning is going on when our day is the way it is. We also get yelled at by parents because we have to quarantine their children because of allergies and colds. Now we'll be sending them home because they'll have sore throats from masks. Yes, some children are testing positive, but they are not critically sick. Many of them just have the sniffles or no symptoms at all. Masking the children is not the answer. It has never been done for any other virus in which more children have been hospitalized for the flu than COVID. Letting viruses run their course is the only thing that can be done. When you get a bunch of kids together, they're going to get sick. You need to get over the hump. If you distance learn and come back, the same thing is going to happen. If anything is to change, it's to stop trying to control every symptom a child has and let life go on for everyone's mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So many kids have been adversely affected by the strict measures last year, and we're seeing a lot of more mental illness than ever. Another health component the nurse's office can't effectively address because everything is COVID. I think you're making a big mistake by masking our children. The place where kids need to see each other smile the most will have to be covered up, but you can go to a Vikings game and it's fine. By the way, I'm a nurse, and I wasn't asked my opinion on masking, and I'm compromised, and I choose not to live in fear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 20, Mike Paraso.
Hello? Ooh, I'm real loud. My name is Mike. I do live in Gilbert, and I do have a kid in the school district. I was going to come up here and talk about
What's your last name?
Paraso. Okay. I was going to come up here and talk about masks and the studies done about it and how ineffective they actually are. But watching the reactions of you guys up here, I want to talk about that instead. It seems like you're supposed to be here to do what we want, and most of you look really bored, like you don't want to be here, like we're wasting your time. And if you don't want to do this, you don't want to stay here, you don't want to talk to us, then why are you doing this? Why do you want to be here? And one last comment that I do have too is it's not our kids, it's my kids and the students. There's a difference. They're not your kids, they're my kids. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
21, Tim Strasser. Tim Strasser, number 21.
Back there.
Moving on to number 22, Hannah Letty. Number 22, Hannah Letty.
Hello, my name is Hannah Letty. I came here to hear what a lot of people had to say tonight and kind of get the feeling for what's going on here. And I do want to say thank you to all the teachers and everything, because last year with the distance learning, being a full-time, mom and career person and everything, it was a lot. I don't think they get enough credit for what they do. On top of that, I did want to talk a little bit about the critical race theory. Now, I want to take the critical race theory title out of it. I do think that it's important for our students to learn actual history, though. And many of the history books, and it's really a shame, many of the history books, even when my daughter was a few years younger, she's in 11th grade now. And I'm sorry, I don't think I said that. She attends this school, the VHS. She's in 11th grade now, and she is finally coming home with stuff that actually is the truth. And it's not just butterflies and rainbows and this is what happened. And for Thanksgiving, the natives made this big grand meal for the pilgrims, and now it's actual history being taught. And the history it's hard to swallow for many people. And I really hope that, even the parents here, whether, no matter which side you're on, hopefully there's not a side, they actually see the difference between, filling your kid's head full of crazy, butterflies and rainbows, and things like actual history being done. So I do think it's important for kids to understand that, based on race, based on your ethnicity and your race, color of your skin, you are treated different, and you do need to be prepared for those conversations in the long run. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue into college, and I think this school is actually finally preparing them for the real world. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. 23, Paula Stocky.
Hello, my name is Paula Stocky. I do have 3 kids in the district. I live outside of the district. First, I want to say thank you to all the school board members. It's a thankless position, and you're doing your best in some incredibly challenging times. I'd extend that appreciation to all of our school district staff. I am so grateful that our kids can be in school this year, and your vote today, my hope is that it will be one that keeps our kids in school throughout the rest of the year. One thing that I heard from a person in the public health field was a concern that the only thing that will change the minds of some folks regarding mitigation strategies is that if one of our students or one of our staff end up seriously sick or die. And my best hope is that today's vote will prevent that from happening. Other health strategies are equally as important. I couldn't agree more. And so doing our best that we can every day is critical. With respect to some of the comments made about critical race theory, I would just want to echo those comments that what we are doing today in schools is preparing our kids for what happens next. Our future generation. Where will they go? Who will they interact with? What will they know? What won't they know? And we recognize that there are so many different perspectives, so many different ideas out there, so many different religions, so many different ways to think. I teach my kids that one of the only real mistakes there is the ones we don't learn from. And so if we don't learn about our real history, some of the things that have really gone on, not to say we ourselves did that or we ourselves would do that, but it is our experience as our American history, we can learn from that. Similar to this global pandemic, does anyone really know exactly what is the right strategy? We are learning as we go along, and that's what teaching our kids is all about. I hope that my kids treat every human being with the inherent worth and dignity that I believe is within each of us. That is what our religion teaches, and it's critical that we uphold that. And when my kids came home from 11th grade English, where they had some really challenging conversations, they had very different perspectives from other students. That's what's preparing them for the next step in their lives. So thank you for that. Thank you to our district in teaching those lessons and sharing that compassion for all human beings, and so we don't repeat our mistakes previous. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 24, Kurt Williams.
Hi, I'm Kurt. I live in the district.
Mr. Williams, you might have to move that microphone a little closer.
Hi, I'm Kurt. I live in the district. Also have a child that's in the district and one that soon possibly may be in the district as well. So I want to speak on test accuracy. Test accuracy is not something that is yet to be proven as far as what test is best possible. As I have a son who coughed, I was told that he had to, not return to school until he had got a COVID test. However, it wasn't COVID from the signs that he had, but it's a big inconvenience to have to drive all the way across the city. And it's torturous to some of these kids when they don't direct the nurses how far to stick that nasal swab up their nose. And the fact that my son had a nosebleed, he's terrified to be tested. And I had to drive to Duluth to the convention center so he can have a saliva test. That's a big inconvenience. It's not making our kids comfortable They're afraid to cough in school. They're afraid to sneeze. They're afraid to be a human almost from these natural things. It is seasonal time right now to where the season is changing, and the body temperatures that's going on right now is causing a reaction. It's a natural cleansing within our bodies. So every sickness, I want to say, is not COVID. There's so many more sicknesses out here, diseases, viruses, cancers, that should be paid attention to more than what COVID is. So another thing I want to address is by you guys' funding. Funding is what is it really worth as far as human rights go? Because I feel that y'all are being incentivized to take away our freedoms. And that is not right. You guys have to think about your children, your grandchildren, and the ones after that. Incentivizing to yourselves and whatever the government has to offer as far as losing our freedom and rights is wrong. It's not the way to do it. And you have to back down from this idea. So another thing is you guys are going with your feelings over facts. That needs to be booted because it's the facts that we need to stick to. And when we go with science, I can tell you, hey, if you put Roundup fertilizer on your garden, it will grow 2 times more. But until someone comes after me and say, hey, actually, that makes it grow only 1 times more. But if you try, a different product, Round Down, that it'll grow 8 times more. It's not factual. You can believe that for the moment, but it's not factual. So I just ask you to look at things a little bit farther before you make these important decisions for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 25, Jody Westby.
Hello, my name is Jody Westby. I have 2 daughters currently going to the Evelyn Gilbert High School. Gosh, where do I begin? There's so much I could talk about up here, and this is really tough. This is really tough. Somebody mentioned my aunt earlier about the wonderful experience that I had going to the Virginia High School, and I did many years ago. It was fantastic. What we're talking about now, and whether it's CRT or the masks, my girls don't need that. I am 43. I've held down a job for 17 years. I make a living. I think I'm responsible enough to make decisions for my kids. I agree with the studies that lean on the side of masks really don't help. My daughters, myself, suffered from having to wear masks. My job made me wear a mask for a while, and I was sick for 6 months. I take the mask off, I'm perfectly fine. My daughters had to play sports with that mask on last year. They were awful. Lightheadedness. You're breathing in your own crap is what you're doing. And if it was so important to you gentlemen up here, why aren't you wearing them now? You guys are right on top of each other. Do you believe what you're telling us and what you're making us do, or is this a game? And my kids don't need to think about this. That's what I'm here for. And the CRT, they're going to think the way I teach them to think. Not what you guys teach them to think. You guys can try to instill some sort of guilt or whatever the case may be. I understand. I mean, there's so many labels and so many ways that you can present what it is that you're presenting. But bottom line, they're going to think the way I teach them to think. The way my home, my family, my culture has brought them up to think. And it's a pretty damn good one. Right. It's a pretty damn good one. And I just don't appreciate the arrogance. Because that's, not all of you may think that way, but that's the way you come across. You're arrogant. As though what we think doesn't matter because it doesn't line up with what you think. Well, isn't that hypocritical? So I would ask that you please listen truly. I hope this isn't a game. I hope you're truly listening to what's being said. Because I am responsible enough to take care of my own damn kids. I don't need help. You guys teach them how to read, how to add, multiply, subtract, teach them English, teach them proper history, and I'll take care of the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone who is on the list has had an opportunity to speak. That will conclude our working session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody for showing up.
Thank you.